It was a sight to behold. The Glenn L. Martin Mars flying boat was not only the largest seaplane ever manufactured by the United States, but it even had a galley, showers, sleeping rooms for a crew of 13, and could carry about 300 passengers. Though capable of transporting record-breaking loads for long ranges, World War II would eventually hinder its production, and only 6 of them were built. Still, they played a pivotal role during the Korean War as long-range cargo aircraft. As 2 of them were lost in the early 50s, the remaining ones, dubbed the Big Four, were sold for scrap, but a visionary pioneer anticipated their potential and transformed them into another kind of weapon, one that would now put up a fierce fight against the forces of nature itself. A big idea. Seaplanes played a pivotal role during the first decade of the 20th century, and they would be extensively used in World War II by both the Allies and the Axis powers. They were also among the largest aircraft in existence, and during the 1930s, they excelled as airliners because of their advantages against ships and their ability to drift without the need for expensive airport facilities. One particular model, the glamorous China Clippers from Pan American Airlines, used to fly the rich and famous all the way to the exotic Orient. However, after building 3 of them, the Glenn L. Martin Aircraft Company aimed to build bigger and better flying boats, capable of flying longer ranges. By the late 1930s, the U.S. Navy was in need of a patrol bomber. With a massive war on the horizon, flying boats were pressed into military service, especially to hunt Nazi U-boats. Then, on August 23, 1938, the Navy placed an order with Glenn Martin for a model designated the XP-B2M1. The aircraft was initially meant to be an aerial battleship, capable of flying about 5,000 miles to defend outlying American territories in the Pacific. Designed to carry up to 10 tons of bombs in a unique delivery system, the intended high-altitude bomber was equipped with a state-of-the-art Norden bomb sight and powered by 4 18-cylinder, 2,200 horsepower Wright R3350 duplex Cyclone engines. In addition, it could ferry para-marines as a quick reaction force and was equipped with 4 retractable machine gun turrets. Needless to say, the entire system was air-conditioned and pressurized. The huge vehicle had a wingspan of 200 feet and a hull of 120 feet, with 2 stories, with spacious rooms that included a galley, showers, and sleeping rooms for a crew of 13. The aircraft was eventually named Mars and became the largest operational seaplane ever manufactured in the United States. In truth, the vessel appeared more of a ship than an airplane. It was built from the keel upward just like a ship, and then launched aft first into the water. It even had a traditional christening with a champagne bottle. The prototype, called Buno 1520, was first launched on November 5, 1941, at Glenn Martin in the surroundings of Baltimore, Maryland. Unlike production versions, the first model featured twin vertical tails. 1 month later, an accident with the propeller of the 3rd engine threw a blade during taxi trials. The damage was severe, and the engine, mount, and part of the starboard wing were destroyed. Mars would now require extensive repairs, but only 2 days later, America was at war. Service life. After the Pearl Harbor attack, the Mars program was considerably delayed. Repairs, testing, and upgrades dragged on for months, and it wasn't until July 3, 1942, that the prototype made its maiden flight. Testing was concluded by November, but the war progression now demanded completely different strategies than initially planned. Unfortunately, there was no longer a need for a lagging patrol bomber flying boat with a cruising speed of only 140 to 185 miles per hour, rendering it utterly vulnerable to enemy fighters. The new conditions called for long-range cargo aircraft, which could transport loads across the submarine-infested Atlantic Ocean, and a transatlantic air freight appeared to be a strategic solution. Consequently, the Navy resolved to convert the seaplane into a transport aircraft, stripping away its gun turrets, fuselage, and wing bomb bays, as well as its armored plating and all other combat features. The aircraft was then fitted with cargo hatches and loading equipment. The previous hatches had to be enlarged, while the decking required reinforcing. Redesignated the XPB-2M1R, the gigantic and resignified transport was delivered a year later. Initially, Mars was assigned to the VR-8 unit at Patuxent River, Maryland, for crew training, and it was then transferred to VR-2 at NAS Alameda near San Francisco, California. Mars was mainly used on routes from the coast of California to Hawaii, but it also transported tons of precious metals from the African continent, as well as priority cargo to Hawaii. The seaplane quickly established impressive service records. Satisfied with its performance, the Navy ordered a batch of 20 production Mars-based vehicles in early 1944. The new model would be known as the JRM-1, which differed from the original in its conventional vertical tail and lengthened fuselage, as well as having fewer bulkheads and increased maximum takeoff weight. Furthermore, the first JRM-1 was also fitted with overhead cargo handling and more powerful Wright R3350 24WA Cyclones with four-bladed propellers. The first model, Buno 76819 Hawaii Mars, was delivered in July of 1945, roughly at the end of the war. Therefore, the original order was reduced to only 6 examples. The last one, named JRM-2, was given even more powerful engines, Pratt & Whitney R4360 Wasp Majors, which delighted the Navy so much that they had the 4 remaining JRM-1s fitted with them. While the modernized aircraft was redesignated JRM-3, the original prototype, the twin-finned aircraft dubbed Old Lady, was withdrawn from service. The 5 remaining ones were Hawaii, Marianas, Caroline, Philippines, and Marshall Mars. Starting in 1945, they all carried valuable cargoes, such as blood plasma and spare parts to Pacific bases. They would also return with litters of wounded soldiers from Korea. In 1946, Hawaii Mars broke a double record by flying 35,000 pounds of cargo to Honolulu, and then 100 litter patients plus 20 medical staff to Alameda upon its return. 3 years later, Caroline set a world record by flying 269 people from San Diego to Alameda, but Marshall surpassed it months later when it carried 301 passengers plus crew from Alameda to San Diego. In 1950, Marshall experienced an engine fire, and after an emergency water landing and the evacuation of the crew, the aircraft exploded and sank. The remaining examples would be dubbed the Big Four, and continued under Navy service until 1956, when they were beached at NAS Alameda. Legacy. In the second half of the 1950s, wildfires took a heavy toll on Canadian forests, and thousands of acres in the West were destroyed. Consequently, several renowned corporations decided to join efforts and create Forest Industries flying tankers. While regular air tankers require a runway to reload after each drop, Mars offered a new possibility for the particular geography of British Columbia. The area lacked airfields, but it was surrounded by lakes and generous coastlines, bays, and inlets. The colossal flying boat would make a perfect air tanker, as it was already equipped to scoop up water. A Canadian pioneer in the field of air tankers, and a senior pilot himself, Dan McIver, was the first to suggest the idea to turn the enormous flying boats into water bombers. However, the 4 Martin Mars were put up for auction in 1959, and McIver was too late. The flying boats were sold to Hugo Forrester for a total of $23,650, and he planned to scrap the aircraft. When McIver heard about it, he tried to convince his superiors of their potential and persuaded them to purchase the 4 aircraft at $25,000 each. The fleet then found a new home at Sprout Lake Tanker Base on Vancouver Island. McIver anticipated the changes to come in the following decades and gathered as many spare parts as possible, including new engines. This genius move allowed FIFT, later Flying Tankers Inc., to carry Mars all the way into the 21st century. The 4 examples were eventually converted from long-range cargo aircraft to short-range water bombers. Mounted with special scoops, the newly converted tankers were able to take on 7,200 gallons of liquid during a water run of about 20 seconds. They would then release it over forests and create artificial rain. The tankers had a dignified run for decades, although Marianas was lost during a training accident, and Caroline was damaged by a hurricane. Still, Hawaii and Philippines operated flawlessly for 45 years. In 2007, Forest Industries relinquished the operations to Coulson Group, marking the beginning of the end for the Mars. Despite popular support, they were becoming too expensive to maintain compared to more modern air tankers. Moreover, they became outdated and less suitable for operations in mountainous terrains. Philippines was retired in 2012. Initially, it was restored and repainted with its U.S. Navy colors and markings to be displayed at the U.S. Naval Aviation Museum at NAS Pensacola in Florida. But the shipping was delayed indefinitely due to political reasons, and the example stayed in its home. As for Hawaii, it was to be discharged in 2013 and only flew once more during an emergency in 2015. Both examples are still sitting in Port Alberni, as owner Wayne Coulson put it, quote, in hopes of finding another business or home for it. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the like button and leave a comment in the section below. And for more content about the World Wars, subscribe to all our Dark Documentaries channels and hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest videos. Stay tuned.